This is ACOFAE. Laura Marie and Jessica Marie proudly present A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, a podcast. Fair warning, everything the hosts say is explicit, full of spoilers and adult content, and shall not be used against them. They have opinions. Let's try not to drag anyone for expressing themselves and just have fun for an hour. We all deserve it.
There are no spoilers in this episode outside of Legendborn. However, there are conversations surrounding sexual assault, grief, loss, and racism.
Everybody, and welcome to A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, your weekly deep dive into the YA literature and fandoms that we love. I'm Laura Marie.
And I'm Jessica Marie.
And today we are discussing Legendborn by Tracy Deonn, the book we decided to start because boy oh boy did we DNF another one.
And how much better of a payoff was this? I mean, I do not understand how this author has, at the time of this recording, less than 9,000 followers on Instagram. I just cannot wait to sing this author's praises and this book. I loved it. On par for me. I sent you a lot of reactions. It was good. I was at the edge of my seat. It was so sucked in right away.
So we both went into this blind. All we had to go on was the publisher summary. And let me tell you, that's all that we needed. And I think it's really important right off the bat to acknowledge that we know that this book was not written for us. We are not the target audience as older, not person of color. We know. But both of us, Jess and I, grew up in the South. And both of us have been in North Carolina. So we have lived a part of this situation, but obviously Bree has her whole very different experience than us. So we acknowledge that, and we found a lot of other aspects to relate to, and this book is fantastic and everyone should read it.
And just a note for the publisher summary, this is how we basically went off into seeing it. Filled with mystery and an intriguingly rich magic system, Tracy Deonn's YA contemporary fantasy Legendborn offers the dark allure of City of Bones with a modern-day twist on a classic legend and a lot of Southern black girl magic.
That's all we needed. Sold. Immediately. Of course, City of Bones is Shadowhunter, so I was just yeah, and Southern black girl magic should be celebrated all the time, every day, forever. So, sold. Now, I know that I was not expecting an Arthur legend. Were you expecting an Arthur legend?
No, I just knew that there was magic and college campus. That was really all I needed. I was they already sounded better than the one, because we were reading in a previous book, and I don't want to put that book or author on blast. And we were we can't do this. It's taking us too long to get into. Do we have a backup? And we decided the backup middle of the week. I think it was on a Wednesday, and we were supposed to record on the weekend. And what a wonder. I mean, it's beautifully written from the beginning. The characters, we both also listened to this through Audible, and the narrator did such a wonderful job. I'm probably saying this incorrectly. I wish there was a sound that I was saying it, but Janice Abbott Pratt, she was the narrator for this book. And I think in our episode a couple weeks ago, we talked about how audio reading versus physically reading the book and bringing the characters to life. And she did that for Bree and for all the characters in this story and the plot. I just was visualizing, and I felt like I was walking UNC the whole time.
And, we, both of us, Jess and I, went to college in the South. We grew up in the South. So here, I found it very comforting to hear a nice Southern kind of twang. It was just okay, this sets the scene. I can feel it. And of course, North Carolina, being North Carolina, Bree and her experiences. Oh my God. Some of the things that happen to Bree make me want to jump through the pages and strangle people just on Bree's behalf.
And you know what? I'm sure people will read this and say, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. There's no way that happened. Or like, I do think some people feel like with reading, there's exaggerations with certain experiences, and it's not. I mean, we're in 2020 and it's still happening. And if you're not willing to acknowledge that and feel that rage for somebody else, maybe that's time for you to do some reflecting too, and even in one of the page meetings, and I can't remember which character it was, she had even said, she goes, look, I do, sometimes I just put my head down. You have to pick and fight your battles. She goes, I hear it because I'm white passing. And so people will say all these comments and microaggressions around me. And, you learn to pick and choose. And which was so sad. It's like how frustrating that must be to go through that, to pick, just be like, you know what? I can't do it. It's not even how exhausting on a regular basis. You can't shut it off. And that's a privilege that you have to acknowledge when you aren't experiencing that.
So something that really jumped out, actually, I think to both of us, is Bree's absolutely stunning descriptions of grief, and Bree kind of, I don't know, I really related to the way that Bree talked about like before Bree and after Bree, and how after Bree, Bree's mother dies, and, Bree's very young, and it had, obviously this huge impact on her. And we kind of get this like magical, like mystery, and that's kind of the plot of the book, more or less. And she talks about after her mom died, this like other Bree was like deep in her stomach, and she would push her down all the time because all that was like pain and rage and like frustration. And she knew that, if she let that out, then she could never like put her back in. So Bree's kind of journey through grief and like self-discovery and acceptance was just so absolutely beautiful, and something that I'm sure there's other books, that deal with it, but it's kind of the first YA book, and this is very YA. I mean, no spice, very YA here. It's so important. And I feel like young kids need something like this. 'Cause, you get a lot of the like dead parent trope bullshit. That's my opinion. But this one where you're actually dealing with and going through this character's journey with grief was so refreshing and so lovely and so relatable. So like, even if you don't kind of relate to the racism, or the racism kind of like sets you off guard, or I don't even know. 'Cause like, I don't know, that shouldn't be an issue, but you can find something here to really relate to. And it was gorgeous. I just can't stop saying how wonderful it was.
Yes to everything. I could only continuously back you up in the portrayal of it. And having almost that, I don't want to say acceptance, but it almost feels like there's an approval there. I feel like it's okay for you to have these reactions. And I know it's part of the grieving process, as, people, and we unfortunately find out. But there's like a permission. I think that's what's refreshing about that. She gives herself permission, and the writer gives us permission to understand where this person is coming from, and like those internal thoughts when she's interacting with other people.
And interacting with other people. So, if you have never lost somebody, then I could see where this would make you a little bit uncomfortable. But when people come up to you after you've lost somebody and they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, is there anything that I can do? Bree is so fantastic in calling the bullshit when she sees it. She's just like, you don't fucking mean that. Of course, she doesn't say, there are some F-bombs in here that I was a little surprised at. I was like, whoa.
Well, it's like certain PG-13 movies that they're allowed to be PG-13. But if they have more than X amount of, like with Hamilton on on Disney Plus, they had to take out like the third fuck or something in
You
Hamilton.
can't, there's a documentary about this that I had to watch when I was in grad school, and for a PG-13 movie, you're allowed to say one fuck.
Okay.
Yes. Just wonderful. Okay, so let's dig into the plot a little bit. So something that is done so well is the like gender neutrality through everything, and like it's there, but it's not a big deal because it's not a big deal.
Because it's not a big deal. It's very reflective to the world we're living in. So why wouldn't her writing portray that? Like it just makes sense, and I loved it. And there's a respect there also, and you could see that in the writing, the generational divide of yes, that makes total sense. And oh my God, what do you mean that this person prefers they, them, and not whatever other gender that person identified with possibly previously?
And even so Alice, Bree's best friend, is gay, and it's not a thing because it's not a thing. It's just, oh my God, it's so wonderful. And then, Selwyn was in love with Nick, and that's a little bit shocking, but it's also like not right.
Right. I think I was just because of before we got to that part of the story, how his character had been tailored. So I didn't think that and maybe that's me being close-minded and just becoming more aware. He had been attracted to Bree this whole time, so I didn't have a different perspective.
Yeah, it was lovely. And then like William,
I was gonna say, when she woke up, he was talking about being in love, and Bree, she's just like, well, who's the lucky person? There wasn't an assumption of who's the lucky guy or who's the lucky girl. She was like, who's the lucky person? And William continues to like go into his story. I thought it was just everything about this book was so well written. And I'm so happy that this is a book that has a target audience of YA, because once again, if that's the target audience, imagine having books like this when we were growing up. They didn't exist, number one, or if they did, they were certainly not in our southern libraries. So I think it says something of people, like people want these type of stories. And I hate the conversation with, that we've been seeing recently on TikTok and just bringing to light that publishers are saying otherwise.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Okay. So this book has a secret society, which
I love a secret society.
I love a secret society. We grew up, the first secret society movie that I saw was The Skulls with, who was that? Like fucking Joshua Jackson. So I have loved secret societies since I was a child. So finding out that, she's at UNC Chapel Hill and there's secret societies, and like she gets, she kind of like forces her way in, but like more power to her, Mm-hmm. Oh, it's so good. Did I expect a King Arthur legend? No, I didn't. Did I expect to be so in love with Sel speaking Welsh? No, I didn't, but here we are.
Oh my gosh. Well, let's talk about Selwyn's intro. And I know I made a TikTok about it right off the bat. I was sold. It was sold. But just the description. I wouldn't do that if I were you. A wry voice from behind startles. I hadn't heard anyone approach through the underbrush, but a tall, dark-haired boy leans casually against a tree, arms over his chest, black combat boots, his ankles are crossed. He's unsettlingly beautiful. His face is aristocratic and sharp frame with high cheekbones, ink black hair that falls over his forehead. Swoon. That's it. Selwyn, I was sold. Chapter 1. Take me with you. But then, like, just the Welsh, him speaking Welsh. And then at the end, where he's like, you are my king now, Cariad. Swoon. Who needs a fucking Chad at UNC when I have a King's Mage at my disposal?
So hot. Oh, God. So
Cariad, I actually looked at, I was like, I know it's going to be a term of endearment, so I just want to know what it meant. And the definition is darling or sweetheart, but in Welsh it means love. It's like, You're my king now, love. I was like, oh, yes. So there's like the lovey part of it. But let's make it known that this isn't a love story. This isn't a romance. This is plot heavy.
Very plot heavy. And I will say there's a tiny bit of romance, right? Like, but it's not like it's central to the plot in that it spurs Nick to sack up, right?
The love is the catalyst to keep certain parts of the plot moving, yes.
Yeah. So, I don't trust blondes, I think. I don't trust blondes. As soon as Nick was introduced and he was like, yeah, I looked up your schedule and I did all this stuff, and Bree's like, you're a fucking stalker.
Call him out on his shit, girl.
Yeah. And, he's blonde. He's got the sapphire blue eyes. Now she's like, I don't trust him. I don't trust him. But he turns out to be a really good guy.
He is. And, and Selwyn even says that. He goes, it's one of the many reasons why I fell in love with him. It's just part of Nick's irresistible charm. So it's not disingenuine. He truly is a good guy at his heart, which is why he didn't even want to be affiliated with all of this order bullshit.
Right. So the order, the secret society, it's a society of King Arthur and the Round Table, and there's knights, and it's very complicated.
It took me a while to catch on.
So their bloodlines and their powers are passed down through generations, and there's one person is an heir.
Yeah. So the direct descendant of the line of the Knights of the Round Table is called a scion. And then the scions have squires. And then if the squire, and each scion chooses a squire. And once that bond is accepted, there's a little magic that happens and they're bonded for life. And at the same time, that scion's squire also takes whatever power that knight had. And, each knight is known for this knight is known for speed and this one's known for healing and this. So there's a bunch of different, factors going on. But that squire takes on their scions. And then it's almost like that becomes they become part of that lineage in a way. And then below squire are pages, and they're basically pages. They're basically people trying to be chosen as
they're pledges.
A squire. Yeah, they're pledges. Yeah, I think I even said, I was like, oh, they're PNMs.
Yeah, they're pledges. So the pages are pledges, and what's really cool about this is the order fights demons. Cool. There's gates and there's demons. Something that I did find a little hard to believe is the demons are all animals. It's a demon bear, a demon fox, a demon panther.
Yeah, they were yeah.
I was like, oh, okay.
Hell fox.
Yeah, hell fox. Hell dog, hellhound.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's a weird kind of thing.
That's the only criticism that we're really having.
Take that as what it is. But so something that I found really interesting is the secret society, this fights demons, and they've been doing it since the 10th century or whatever, and Arthur. And so it's been this ongoing war against the demons, and it's kind of building up to this huge kind of end of days battle, and the scions get called and possessed by their knights in order of importance. So something bad starts to happen, the lowest ones get called, and then up the ladder it goes, and then when the big battle is about to happen, it hasn't happened yet, but leading up to it, Arthur's the last one to be called, and he hasn't been called in however many years.
Over 200 years. There's this whole behind the scenes battle. And that's why you have the ranks, because you have the least important. And I think the quote unquote least important is the healer. He's the first to call, but that makes sense because he's the first. He's going to be look, I'm going to kind of manage everybody who might start fighting. I need to have these powers available and become accustomed to them.
So something that is also really interesting is let's all remember that these are, Bree is 16, which was difficult for me. She's in an advanced, early college program. So she's allowed to live in the dorms and like go to classes, and like that's really cool. And she's there with her best friend Alice, which is really cool. And she's young, and Nick is older, and like Selwyn is older, like everybody else is older than her. And she even says like, you know, I'm 16. I used this girl's fake ID. The guy didn't even question it because he's like face blind to Black people. I was just like, wow, wow. Yeah. Okay. Because we've used fake, well, you know, hypothetically, we've used fake IDs.
I remember, okay, so here's fun fact for me in college. I didn't have like a legal ID because I was so young. And, you know, I started school early, and then I skipped grades, and then I took advanced college classes in high school. So by the time I was 16 my senior year of high school, and then going into freshman year of college, dorming, by the way. So I'm not saying I did anything bad. I would just say I don't have my ID, but here's my student ID. And at the time where we went to school in Florida, everything was 18 to enter, 21 to drink. So there's an assumption, well, college ID is fine, because who's not at least 18 in college? Yeah, there's my little handy trick. So that clearly isn't how things work anymore, but it got me to do things that I wanted to do. So I think maybe that's where, yeah, reading about her being 16 and young and still in high school is weird. But at the same time, I'm like, in a way, I did that, you know?
I think it was weirder, just like for me reading it, because at the end, like all these people die, right? A bunch of people die, and you're like, wow, these are young
escalated
kids.
Really quickly.
Yeah, and they just start like falling, and you're like, damn, these are, I'm not gonna say children, they're like young, you know, like young adults, you know, like teenagers, like later life teenagers, I guess, whatever. But like, it's really something.
And young adults who've already been exposed to so much.
Yeah, so the secret society is, you know, like most secret societies, old, white, rich people, and that, you know, their families have been in it for thousands of years. So, you know, it's steeped in like tradition and prejudice, a lot of that. And it's, yeah, these people have been trained their whole life for this. That's what Nick says, right? He's like, I was homeschooled so that my dad could train me. I picked up a sword like as soon as I could. You know, Cell was brought to me when he was very young, and like we worked together, and this has been my destiny. And I've always known that. Of course, we find out that, you know, it wasn't Nick's destiny.
Holy shit. Did you see that coming?
No, I did what you did. So you were like, you know, he's not going to be able, like, he can't pull the sword out of the stone. It didn't budge for him. But then you were like, oh, but, you know, what if Bree does it? What if Bree does it? And of course, Bree does. And God, what a moment. What a moment at the end.
You were all, because, you know, we love, whether you're joining now or if you've been following, y'all know, we love ourselves powerful, strong women who are recognizing that they are a force to be reckoned with. And I love that she even says that, you know, she has that little mini mantra that she says to herself at the end where she's like, survive, resist, and thrive. And I'm like, what a mantra. Like, we should all be saying that to ourselves.
Thrive. That's so good. You don't hear that very often, you know, like, thrive. And something that I really love is that, so Bree's mother in the beginning of the book dies, and Bree, you know, finds out that she went to UNC Chapel Hill and she wants to go there, and she has this feeling that it wasn't an accident because she saw some magic around one of the like police officers that were there, and she can see what is it called?
Ether?
Ether, yeah. I was like, Ethel, that's not right. Yeah, ether. She can see ether, which is like, you know, like magic in essence, but it's really fantastic that Bree her magic system is root, and the
connected to the earth, and the white folk is like ether and like blood magic, and it's like very, very separate. But we find out very, very beautifully that one of Bree's ancestors begged the earth, the root, to protect her as she was fleeing, and she sliced her palm open. She says it was a deep cut on her palm, and if you know me at all, you know that's a pet fucking peeve of mine. And then, but she, you know, she has her very bloody palm, and she like presses it into the earth, and she's like, you know, please help me, please, please, please. And then her ancestor like makes a deal, like, yes, the like spirits of the earth and like the ancestors will help you, but you know, for forever you can only have one daughter at a time, and you'll die early. Like that is the trade-off. That is the curse kind of thing.
It's the curse.
Like for like, or you know, whatever traditional tropes, magic tropes we're saying here.
So Bree's magic, her root, is completely different from, you know, everybody else that practices root, and it kind of unsettles her therapist, right? Like her therapist is I don't want to say biased or prejudiced, but she is a little bit, right? Like she's like, you know, don't call it ether. That's what they call it. Like we call it root. But then we find out that, you know, Bree's ancestor did the blood magic. So she's more kind of on
where like blood not even blood, like root magic is kind of like this general thing, but her direct line is kind of what started root magic. So that's kind of my takeaway, because she eventually connects with her grandmother. Very Bonnie Grams relationship.
Very.
We love Bonnie and Grams. And she was like, "Grandma, help me." And she's like, "Well, I'm waiting on getting somebody from like, you know, somebody, you know," and I think, you know, just based on lineage, she's just like, "Well, who are you getting? Like, why is this taking so long?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm going to like the OG of this whole thing." And of course she like makes this spectacular appearance, and you find the history, and it's really nice to have that insight and to see where you find out her line started from, like the original, where she, you know, and you find out the big plot twist. Not even a twist. It was just like such, I don't know what to call it, because I don't know. Was it? It's not considered a plot twist. I was just like, oh, didn't see that coming.
Yeah. You know, I think when they're in the cave and they're fighting, and Bree has this like internal like monologue. She has this like, you know, she says she has like 3 other heartbeats inside of her, right? Because Bree turns out to be a medium, which is just so cool. So she has her grandmother in her, she has Arthur, plot twist, in her, and then she has like the OG in her too, right? So it's like she has like 3 heartbeats inside of her,
and 3 people speaking to her at all times, and not including her own thoughts of her probably just trying to be like, "Hold on, you guys," which eventually happened. She's like, "I don't want to keep fighting. I don't want all this death to keep happening. Hold a beat."
For real. And so the kind of like cool thing is, if you know the legend of Arthur, so it's like Arthur, Guinevere, and Lancelot. And Lancelot's like his right-hand man and most trusted knight. Guinevere has an affair with Lancelot. That is the myth. We know this. But in this, I don't even want to, it's not a retelling, just in this version, I guess, Nick and his family claim to be the scion of Arthur, and we find out that that's not true. Nick is actually the scion of Lancelot, because the ancestors did exactly what Arthur, like the ancestors did exactly what the OGs did, right?
Right.
And then so the lineages were switched,
but they were switched because they didn't want to. They whoever the parentage was, they didn't want it to be like, oh, Nick isn't a Lancelot. Because of the affair, like he's definitely a Davis. And so this whole time they had made the assumption that he was part of Arthur's line.
It's so good. It's so good.
I did not see that at all. It was such a good way to start the day.
No, when Bree's original ancestor was like, okay, you know, there's, she's talking to Bree. She's like, there's one more person, and you know, it's going to be a responsibility. It's a responsibility that I never had, but are you ready? And Bree said like, yes, I'm ready. And then she like unlocks Arthur, which I thought was really cool. And also like kind of weird.
But like none of the other knights had been locked up. Like when Arthur comes out, that means it's like Camlan. So it's like the final battle, like war is upon us.
No, that's not. I mean, yes, but like that's not what I was thinking. I was thinking it's kind of weird that she's powerful because there's a white man inside of her, like making right. Like but you know, they were all white men. You know, like oh god. And also something that kind of stuck to me was Arthur was like switch to sinister. You know, the left hand is evil. And she's like,
and like the left hand's the devil's hand.
Yeah. And she's like, I'm not left-handed, but I guess Arthur was left-handed. And she's like, it feels so natural on my left hand. I was just like, that's a really cool detail that, you know, didn't have to be in there, but that, you know, is historical. It was cool. It was really cool. I liked it.
It was really cool. And I like just the whole thing of how things were integrated. It just felt so seamless.
It was seamless.
And captivating the whole time. Like I'd only get frustrated that I had to put the book down because I was falling asleep and I'd have to rewind. I'm like, wait, where did I leave off? And that was my only frustration when I had to put the book down because I had to work. Something else that's really seamless in this book is the little details about Bree and her hair.
Mm. And it's so wonderful. Just the thought about it and like the care and the love and the description and how like, you know, it's a hair washing day for Bree and she deep conditioned and then she, you know, wrapped it up and then did her nails while she waited. And at the end her hair was curly and bouncy and shiny and she felt fresh and new and just like everything had like she had scrubbed away everything and like her hair reflected that. And it was gorgeous and just something that I didn't have growing up, obviously. Like, again, this isn't for me, but just think of how impactful that will be, or is, I'm sure, for a young generation where that is celebrated. And I especially liked when Bree, you know, the white girls are touching her hair. She's like, don't touch my hair. It's like, what? Yeah.
Why
don't touch your hair.
Yeah, don't touch your hair. When it started saying that line, I reacted before seeing Bree's reaction.
Like, you don't do that. Like, don't.
Why would you do that at all?
Yeah.
Like, I'm still so, these people, I'm like, you are the reason you give so many people a bad name. That I just get so frustrated, especially in this book. And I'm like, where's the boundaries? Where's the respect and the audacity that you think you have over anybody else to be acting like this?
Oh, it's horrible. And then the old ladies of the Rose Society or whatever,
just assuming that she was, or how about where they were just pieces of shit. Somebody was like, somebody even said like, oh, this affirmative action bullshit. Like, why is she here? I was going to punch a wall. And the fact she even said, I wanted to smash the damn scalloped potatoes in his face. I want to scream that preferential treatment for vassals and rich kids is exactly how they're there. Because this goes back to the whole secret society, patriarchal society. I mean, we later find out that Nick's father had basically conspired this whole war to happen. And she goes, he saw me as two faults for my race and my gender. And I go, and like, there you have intersectionality right there. And she goes, these aren't my faults. These are my strengths. And I am more than this man can comprehend because the fucking patriarchy.
And they even say, I think earlier on, they're like, you know, now we let women in, and now, they used to just be the Rose Society, but now they're in, and, it all took a turn when that happened. It's like, shut the fuck up. Who are you?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
So we needed to start this, everybody's just been kind of, loose about everything because there's nothing serious going on. So we had to create a war so you can realize that women aren't strong and race is awful and what?
Well, and Nick, God, I hate Nick's father, but talk about impotence, right? He wasn't called to be, Arthur didn't call him, right? And he lived with that weird inferiority complex his whole life. And he's like, no. Now, Nick's going to do it, and I'm going to rule through Nick.
And that's Nick's father's bullshit, because there were obviously other people in his line before him that weren't like, oh, we need to have a war. There's not a war happening every generation of quote unquote Arthur's scions. Why? What is going on?
Just old, white, rich men feeling impotent and needing to create a war to feel important. Is that not history? That is all of history. Jesus Christ.
History is doomed to repeat itself. And it's still not learning. Let's still not learning. Okay.
So obviously we love Selwyn. Selwyn has a kind of tragic story with his mother, and of course Bree has a tragic story with her mother, and they kind of learn everything together at the same time when they break into the Davises' house, and they're going through all the redacted files and stuff. And we find out later that Selwyn's mom and Bree's mom were really good friends.
How
and
sweet.
Is so sweet. And Selwyn's mom checked up on her, and Selwyn's mom was the one at the hospital. Because one of Bree's powers that she has, that she gained through her ancestors, was being able to resist glamours, which is a huge part of the secret society. So she keeps her memories, and it just the whole thought of the mages, Merlin being a demon, right?
Well, let's go into that, because we've been talking about the characters. We've given a little bit of background on what a scion is, or what the lineage of the Round Table is. Let's kind of dive into the backstory of a king's mage and Merlin, how Selwyn came to be who he is and his role in all of this.
Selwyn is the king's mage, descended from, mages. He's very powerful. So they're all descended from Merlin. So we all know who Merlin is. Merlin, Arthur, Lancelot, Guinevere, those are the ones. Demon. Interesting, kind of cool. That's how I'm gonna see it forever now. It's Merlin, you demon, you.
Merlin and his demon sex.
Yeah. No, it's demon sex. Demon sex. Demon sex. Because Bree's embarrassed.
Demon sex?
Bree's embarrassed and she whispers it. Oh, it's so funny. It's incubi and succubi. Do you know what those are? It's demon sex. Oh, it's so good. So they're a line of demons, which is interesting. Because the secret society fights demons, right?
Well, what's also sad is that, okay, so each each scion from Arthur's line receives a king's mage. We find out that Nick's father has a king's mage. His name is Isaac. It's Isaac Faye. There are two things that make me ask that, because at one point she goes, I noticed his slightly pointed ears. And then I noticed the tips of his ears that were slightly pointed. And then she talks about having canines / fangs about Isaac's. So now I looked on Goodreads, and I don't know how accurate that is right now, but there is currently a second Legendborn slated for 2022. So I don't know if that's something that might be discovered then. And then also, once a squire, scion, and mage essentially are called, that's basically being said, okay, now your lifespan has been cut short from what we currently know. And you typically don't live past 35.
Ouch. Ouch.
Right. However, the book ends with us questioning that. Did you pick up on that?
I didn't. No, I didn't.
Because Bree's mom passes away recently. Like, she's still like high schoolish because she had just applied to the UNC program.
Yeah.
And so she makes the connection of Selwyn's mom using the ether to try to like glamour her, to mesmer her. And Sel says that doesn't make sense because if that happened recently, that would mean she's still alive.
I just thought that that's because he thought she was dead because she was like institutionalized and like taken away. That's how I read it.
But I think she was dead institutionalized because of like the whole magic thing is how I took it, as just like how everybody else gets called. That's how like there was the assumption that she's dead. And she's like, all these assumptions come from what we've been told. But everything that we've been told, like, look at me standing here, Arthur Scion.
Yeah, it's like all a lie,
everything,
right?
Yeah, like everything a lie now. And I'm excited because you can see like that's where he goes like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. That would mean this for us and blah blah blah. She goes, I know, which is why I'm telling you and only you and away from everybody because this affects us.
Honestly, no, I was more focused on the beautiful framework of Bree not jumping off into the quarry in the beginning and then taking her running leap.
And you knew she was like doing something for her. I liked that moment. And that's how it ends.
That's how it ends. It's beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. Yes. Selwyn. Oh my gosh. So Selwyn and Bree like have that immediate connection, right? And something that I really like about it is that they play up that the King's Mages they're very powerful, and like Sel's very powerful, but they have a tendency to like succumb to their demon side, and that manifests in, certain ways like paranoia and like all these kind of things. And that ends up happening because Sel kind of fixates on Bree and is like, you're different. I don't know why. Like, are you demon? Like, what is it? And, but that's not the case. It's really, really lovely. You know what I loved? I love their fucking scavenger hunt. When they're together, like going through, and they're like in the music school and they're like all over campus doing the scavenger hunt, just the two of them. Like, I really love that. And then they end up in the tunnels and like, that was really cool.
There's this part, and I don't know if it's just because this line and scene has traumatized me in Hollywood, is he was trying to carry Bree for something, and Bree's like, no, I don't want you to carry me like that. And he goes, well, how do you want me to carry you? And she's like, piggyback. And he goes, like that movie. And I was like, he means Twilight. That's how I thought in my head, because you know how Bella goes on Edward and he's like, hold on, spider monkey.
Cringe.
I hate that part so much. But then he later goes, you gotta let me breathe. It's not like I'm a vampire. And I was like, he did mean that movie.
It's like wink, wink.
It's just like, oh my.
Something that is really, really, the whole book is lovely, but something that's really lovely is Bree and her emotions when she is looking at the lineage wall in the basement, right? And she gets so angry because she doesn't, at this point, like, know where she comes from, because obviously we know, because of the deal that her ancestor made, the mothers die like young. So she's looking at, you could trace back your lineage like so far. And, she's like, why not me? Like, where do I belong? Like, I don't belong here. And she doesn't feel like she belongs, with her therapist, and, with the root practitioners, she just feels like an outsider. And, I really, really love that. I love Bree's memory walks with her ancestors. It's so incredibly powerful. Just this line of women. Gorgeous. And I really like the root, obviously, but how it's an exchange. It's like a borrow, right? So the order takes ether, and root borrows and gives back. So you have to have offerings like fruit and honey and, something to make the exchange. And it's It's just so fantastic. And what else is really fantastic is the mention of the Confederate statues and the graveyards where, you know, the people of color died and they're not marked, but you know that they're there. And it's just, it's heartbreaking. It's infuriating, but it's also really lovely for Bree to kind of like see and acknowledge and feel like their strength through her, you know? And like all of this is coming together in Bree. All of these different things have merged to create her. And now she's going to like bring down everything and like reform. And I think that is a kind of big theme in this. It's kind of at the end, Bree as king, and she has like a circle of people around her that like love and support her. And then it's them against all of the like old stuffy white people, right? Because Tor at the end, like I was not really expecting that, like,
yeah,
horrible.
I feel like that came from left field, which I think we've definitely have seen more in the last year and a half. People who've suppressed kind of like these hidden biases and prejudices against other people. And I feel like we saw that at the end from Tor at the end of this book.
Well, what does she say? She says, she's not my king. I mean, we've all heard that before, right?
Yeah.
Jesus. And like Tor,
and that wasn't even what set Bree off, because it had nothing to do with being king. It was the blatant disrespect for her. And not even her, for Alice. And Alice put Tor in her place. And Selwyn had to and William was already thinking I like Alice. We like her. Can she just she's just going to join in for the ride now.
Alice making sure that they were making cheesy grits so that Bree could have them when she woke up. I was just like, oh my God, I love you so much.
Cheesy grits. Cheesy grits.
Cheesy grits with a little bit of salt. Yeah. Yeah, a little bit of butter. All about it. Yes. Just fantastic. And William being like, she's your fucking king. Like, this is what it is. And of course, Nick is kidnapped, right, by his father, and they don't know where he is. And it's this whole thing. And she's like, she's going to go get him back and sell and all of this. It's just, it's so powerful. It's like this young generation is going to go and just stamp out all the crusty old people. Is just
books like this and just continuously seeing this new generation just take a stand, and push. Not that I feel like we tried to push back, and I don't want to say we gave up, but we were suppressed even then. And we were raised in you don't speak up because that's disrespectful, at least the way we were, especially growing up in the South. And to see this new generation to be like, fuck tradition, fuck you. Respect is earned, not given. There is hope. There is hope. It's, to have that strength at such a young age. I didn't have that.
Something that is very unique to the South is Waffle House. And there is I
love when she's like, we want them smothered. I was like,
you know how you want your hash browns? I personally like them chunked as well, like smothered, covered, chunked. That's me. The whole Waffle House scene with her dad was just so fantastic, right? They're both a little bit awkward. They both are dealing with their grief in very separate ways. And I think that's something that is said, his grief is not my grief and my grief is not his grief. It's different, it's separate, but it's both very painful and it's about the same person. And it's just, it's really lovely because in between all of that, they're the menus are sticky and there's crumbs on the table. And, the booths make that noise, that vinyl
I
noise.
have it in my head.
Yeah, exactly what that is. And he orders coffee and you know what Waffle House coffee tastes like. It's just, oh my gosh.
This is making me want some Waffle House bacon right now.
Oh my God.
And even the syrup, I'm somebody who always I'm bougie and I'm like, I love 100% pure maple syrup. It makes everything better. But Waffle House, that's not what Waffle House is about. You go any hour of the day. You know what you're getting. But like, that's what you crave. You're not looking for a Michelin dinner. You're looking for a Waffle House.
We have to get that All-Star, get that pecan waffle. Oh my gosh. So good. And I also really love how her dad like gives Brie her mom's charm bracelet. And of course we find out later that it's like spelled and there's a memory in it and that Sal's mom, yeah. But just the way that they're talking to each other, like coming from a family that deals with grief in a very like negative, terrible way, seeing this healthy relationship and a very caring parent, right? Like he calls, he gets angry with her, like he's worried about her. He comes up and like, but it's all coming from a very supportive place. And he acknowledges and like understands her feelings like as best as he can. It's just so fantastic. More of this, please. More positive parental figures in YA.
Yeah. And not in a overbearing sort of way either. Like he could have easily, and I'm sure this happens in real life too, he could have easily held on to her to be like, well, your mom left. I can't let you go to this program. You're all I have, and be very codependent on her, and kept her from this opportunity. And I just think that it's somehow, as a parent, it still feels very selfless, but still like, letting baby bird fly. And even with, when their relationship was strained more in the beginning of the book, because like some of the things that she was getting in trouble for from the school and what have you, her friend was calling her dad out of concern to be like, I don't know where she is all hours of this day. And he'd be like, don't get mad at her. She's being a good friend. And it kind of like helps you, especially because let's remember she's 16. It's like, check yourself, because how many friends are really going to be reaching out to your family saying like, well, what do I do next?
Right.
Like, how do I approach this?
I don't think that I would do that, honestly. I don't think I would. Well, yeah.
Usually
we're all in there together. But I should mention that when Jess says like she was dorming when she was in college, she was dorming down the hall from me.
Yeah, like
let's be very clear.
Yeah, it wasn't like we dormed together, we rushed together, we pledged together. I mean,
yeah. I mean, we did all the things. We weren't calling each other's parents, but in this setting, it is nice.
But even now, like I know there have been times where I've reached out to, recently I can think of, where I reached out to Sam and I was like, I need your advice on something and I don't know how to approach it. And it was the most helpful because I didn't. And it was like, how do I be completely vulnerable? And he's like, you're going to have to be completely vulnerable. Like, buck up, bitch.
That's the thing. Yeah. Like, oh my gosh. And when I was reading this, though, a couple of times I was like, God, Alice, why? Like, why are you, this is my first thought. Just because I was raised like snitches get stitches. So
right.
when she was snitching, I was like, why are you doing this? Like,
yeah,
right. Like,
yes. Like I know that she did the good thing and the right thing or whatever the right thing is. But then like you said, I also remember like if I was out in a field, passed out,
dying of alcohol poisoning,
someone my best friend is right next to me, or if we're like, in the car, or I mean, how many, like, I just think of your birthday that one year.
But that's the thing though. Communication is so enormous in just like all aspects. So of course, like we're older and we know the importance of communication, but I do find it frustrating where it's like Alice is calling her dad and being like, well, she was out late at a party, but in reality, she was fighting demons, right? Like, it's like, Alice, what are you doing? I have this, it's not like school. I'm doing this other like really important thing. It's like when you're watching a movie and the hero or whatever is trying to like save the world, but the cops stop them for something stupid. You're like, no, you don't understand. Like I have this really important mission that's going to affect like the lives of millions of people, and you're stopping me because I was like jaywalking. Like, this isn't important right now.
Well, that's what I'm going through with the season I'm in with Vampire Diaries is Elena's, parental figure for Jeremy. And they're like, oh, you're not doing well in your classes. And he goes, I've been bringing people back to life, trying not. He goes, so sorry if my GPA isn't my priority right now. And even Elena was like, oh, that's right. Like, our life isn't normal.
Yeah. But of course, at the end, this all gets resolved. Alice gets brought in and, she's a force to be reckoned with. And that communication is there. Good.
Even slowly, where she just, even if she was like, look, I've been kind of tapped for the secret society. And she's like, ooh, I want to know more. And she's like, I can't tell you. But even just like divulging that little bit of information, and especially, UNC, private, like taking a step back, let's take emotion out of it. If you get tapped for a secret society, not just at UNC, anywhere, the networking connections that you will make outside post-graduation are invaluable. So like, again, take the emotion out of it. You're like, oh, okay, totally get it. Won't ask questions. Are you okay? Are you safe? Are you okay? That's all I want to know. Cool. And you take a step back. Because we were just talking about this before the episode. How many people are graduating college and we using the formula, work hard, go to college, get a job, but it's not that order anymore. Now we're just going to college to go to college at this point because...
Yeah. God, that's the truth. Something that I really like with Alice, too, is that she is helpful with mundane stuff. She's like, what are you going to wear to the gala? Like, I will help you. I told my parents that I would stay this weekend and I will help you get ready. And it's interesting because before Bree kind of starts like dropping hints about what's going on, they are starting to drift apart, and they're fighting and they get very angry with each other, and they almost get expelled their first day because they get caught at the quarry. And it's this whole thing, but like at the end they're stronger than ever because they communicated with each other, and now they're like this force to be reckoned with. And they're Alice is not a part of the society like officially, but she kind of is, and they're all gung-ho together, so it's like this sisterhood. I don't think we mentioned that Alice is Asian, but like
I didn't pick up on that immediately until they shared her last name.
Yeah, like it's like obviously it's important, but it's not something that you have to make like this huge point about, because they're just people, right? Like
we're all just people, and that's the frustrating thing is that and which is why it's important that there are stories like this, and like you said, like we might not be the target audience for this, but I think everybody should. It's a book. It's a good book. It's a good plot. I read it because it was good, and I think there's an importance there of kind of getting insight of different lived experiences that I still will, I can acknowledge that I will never experience, and there is a privilege that comes to that. And then you should acknowledge that and understand that everybody's lived experiences. And I think that's important. That's an important takeaway from this book as well.
Oh, absolutely. The comment that Bree makes, like, I don't think anybody of color feels 100% safe with the police. It's like, yeah, that, of course.
Right.
Yeah. And the racism from the cop that they experienced in the beginning, and the like racism from the dean, and it's
the dean of the school who's supposed to be complete, it's just rage every time. And that it goes under the radar for so long. And it still goes under the radar because then you think of interactions with law enforcement, and that's just a small percentage of what we're seeing. That, when people are able, there is somebody else there who is able to capture the whole start to finish thing, and not just like tailored snippets in the media.
And she's so young, and the dean just, what a dick face. God. I am so here for Bree and just remaking everything.
Well, then there's like the racist moms in the thing, and I'm thinking of when they were like, Bree can't be a squire to Nick. Her blood is dirty. She'll taint the line. I like the verbiage in that. And then how great is it? I was like, guess what, bitch? You're tainting my shit. Yeah. Like there was just so much power in that.
So I know that it's kind of a trope to have like a breakdown in the shower, right? Like everybody has their like breakdown.
I love a shower breakdown.
I know. It's fantastic. Like, yes. Yes. It's so relatable. Bree has a breakdown in the shower after like pledge night, more or less. And, her power like comes out of her for the first time. Like after Bree really like comes out and she has all this like mage flame around her and she's like scared and she doesn't know. And she says like, well, I wasn't planning on washing my hair tonight, but here we are. It's like, yeah, good on her. And then it comes full circle where she like embraces after Bree and she does, like we said, she jumps off the cliff in the quarry. And, of course, I love that. I was like, yeah, I would love to do that.
Of course you would. Of course you would.
It's just so wonderful. It's a wonderful book. Everybody should read this book. And,
if we, not the target audience, are this impacted and moved, I'm that much more excited for girls to be reading this and seeing themselves in this. Like I will never know what that feeling will be like. You know, I just think of like the small, and this isn't even close, Therese, of like people who are fat phobic, and you see characters who are always like thin and like, you know, media, and, you know, just the fact that I have two, you know, I have Bryce and Poppy, like they're openly written that they are curvy, thick, you know, medium size, leans heavy, like girls, and they are worshipped, you know, and strong and have this sense of self and confidence. And that to me, I was like, oh my God, I've never read myself in a book before. And to know that this book is going to have that much deeper of an impact for people is so, I will never know what that feels like. And that's going to be such a special thing to know that is going to be what's happening.
Especially since the characters that you mentioned, Poppy and Bryce, are like a new adult kind of thing. So like you don't find those characters until you're a little bit older, right? Because they're spicier. So right. to have this specifically skewed YA, skewed young, to like have the young population find this is just it
makes me happy. It's very, very much so. Yes.
Yeah. You just have this like hope for the younger generation to just, I don't want to say burn it down, but like make it better, right? Like, oh, it's so good. Everybody needs to read this. Everybody needs to read this. Jess, thoughts?
I've said it all. Everybody needs to read this. I look forward to a reread. This is something that I'll definitely reread, especially from what we know, there is supposedly a second book to come currently in 2022. And I will happily reread this to like get myself hyped up for the second book. I want to know more. I want to know more. It was just to be that, you know, it was very special, and how she takes this. And that's like, so that's a similar overarching theme that I feel like we have ourselves with these conversations about the strong women, of like what they do once they know that they can do it, you know, like how exciting when you're like, I have this, all this is at my fingertips, and now what, you know?
It's so wonderful. I'm also very excited for a reread. I'm excited to really let like the magic system and Bree's journey with her ancestors like kind of settle in me a little bit more, because that is what I really took away from it, as I said, like the ancestors and like finding out where you came from and like knowing your history and your backstory and like how that kind of influences how you are now and like just finding your place and then having that place be somewhere like unexpected and just owning it and changing the world.
It's refreshing. It's so refreshing. Like I guess I say refreshing in the fact that does it align with what we've been reading? Absolutely. But there's hundreds of thousands of books out there. There's a reason that this is the one that we're seeing compared to other ones, you know?
And also I think it's like you and me, like podcast wise, I think it's our first contemporary setting.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like,
but I guess they're
like real world, I guess. Because like, yeah, you could say other ones are like contemporary.
You could argue Elfheim a little bit because they went to Target and Starbucks and they were in Portland, Maine.
Yeah. But they weren't like
in it.
Yeah.
They just kind of, I know what you're saying.
They like
where
flit
this one,
in and out of it. But here it's like there's nowhere else to go. Like this
stuff is happening in Chapel Hill.
Yeah. Like
right.
Very clearly. You know, there
was a part where they were talking about Cell being in Asheville, and I was like, Asheville!
Like, we've been there. Like, we know where that is. Yeah. Yeah. So and I'm not like a fan usually of like contemporary anything, but this is, you know, an exception. Yeah. I mean, they compare it in the beginning to City of Glass, which is also like a contemporary that's set in New York, but like this just hit home and it hit so many things that I wasn't expecting to hit. And if it did that for me, as we said, I can only imagine what it will do for the target audience. So everybody please read this book because you'll get something out of it and that something will be glorious.
So thanks for joining us this week. Feel free to follow us on Instagram at ACOFAE Podcast. Laura and I are both on TikTok at ACOFAE Laura and ACOFAE Jessica. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.